Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ask Concussion Doc, episode number 91, the Concussion Fix. So, the Concussion Fix course was a project, or is a project, that we've been working on now for a few months. And really, what it is a course designed for patients. The idea behind this course, and I have some others that are going to be speaking. You can see Dr. Paul Herkel's head in the bottom corner there. And if you're watching or you're listening to the podcast, he will be joining us in just a second. The Concussion Fix course is a course specifically designed for patients. And the idea is that most of the time, the things that are needed for concussion recovery are simple things that can be done on your own. So these are the conversations that I'm frequently having with my patients, and our other presenters are frequently having with their patients, to just try and provide education and guidance with respect to things you can do for your recovery, right? Things that are good for recovery, we know things like exercise, diet, sleep, hormone balance, vestibular rehab, visual rehab, treatment of the neck. All of these different things are important for concussion, but as a patient, it's often difficult to know what to do, when to do it, how hard to do it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the questions that we always frequently get, the conversations that we always are having with our patients on just kind of repeat mode, we decided that this would be more applicable as a course to help empower patients to take control of their own recoveries and help them implement the steps needed in order to get better. There's a lot of people that can't get access to good concussion care. There's a lot of people that are given misinformation, limited information, conflicting information. And so this course is designed to be an evidence-based, scientific background framework that can provide you with guidance on how you can tackle your concussion recovery. Now, my expertise is mostly on the rehabilitative side. I deal in things like exercise, so cardiovascular exercise. How do you do this when you don't have access to a treadmill or a treadmill test or a professional that can help you run it? These are the things that we talk about in the course. My other areas are vestibular, visual, treatment of the neck, neck rehab, things like that, that are basic foundational elements that anyone can do. And this course is not designed to replace your current care, but rather help augment what you're currently doing, help to support it. It's almost like adding another team of professionals to your current care team to help you through it, to be there as a resource. Inside this course, we also have a group, a forum for patients to ask questions, have our experts weigh in on these questions, have support from other people that are going through what you're going through, and really just designed to be a community that is based on an evidence-based concussion management framework. So as I said, my areas of expertise are on the rehab side, the exercise, the visual, the vestibular, the neck, and I needed other experts to come on board to help me bring this whole thing together. This is designed to be very comprehensive. And so one of the things that we needed was definitely diet, inflammation, gut-brain health, hormone regulation, sleep. All of these things are right in the wheelhouse of my good friend, Dr. Paul Herkel, who's also a scientific advisory board member for Complete Concussion Management. He's going to be my first guest on to talk today, so I'm just going to give you a bit of his bio. Dr. Herkel is a board-certified naturopathic doctor with a passion to apply innovative and evidence-based nutritional, biological, and supplemental interventions to address underlying metabolic, endocrine, and immunological dysfunctions. Dr. Herkel has a special interest in neurological health, chronic pain, and brain injuries. He is a strong advocate of integrative medical education, frequently writing and lecturing to both healthcare professionals and public audiences. Dr. Herkel lectures extensively on the topic of integrative and natural approaches to concussions and neurotrauma recovery. He is a member of the Scientific Advisory Board of Complete Concussion Management, an international leader in research-based concussion management education and certification. He is currently the medical director for Advanced Orthomolecular Research, AOR, an innovative and leading Canadian natural health product company, and maintains a clinical practice in the Toronto area at 2 integrative clinics. Dr. Herkel, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Cam.
Oh, you're still coming through on that. I don't know why that volume went up. Sorry about that. All right. Yeah, sweet. um, so just to kind of cover the things that you discuss in your area of the course, do you want to kind of give people a little bit of a background in your areas of expertise and how this applies to the Concussion Fix training course?
Yeah, one thing that we talk a lot about in our CCMI course and when we lecture together is about having a comprehensive approach to brain injuries and concussions. And so one of the pieces of the pie that I think that we both kind of agree that is often overlooked is kind of what I call the metabolic side. And if you're not familiar with that term, it basically is like what's happening inside of the body on almost like a biochemistry level. And that includes things like the foods that you eat and the nutrients that it gives you. That includes, as you mentioned, inflammation. That includes the interaction between the gut and the brain, and it includes hormones. It includes sleep. And so those are the main sections that I talk about in this concussion fix course. And it was a lot of work putting it together. As you said, we've been working on it for months, but it was really rewarding to go through all of this. And it was something that that as you said, we keep repeating with our patients over and over. And it is this information is so important that we just felt we had to get it out there. So we had to bring it up, and this course was a great way of doing it. So just to break it down for you really quick, nutrition and some of the practical aspects. And I really go into some of the behind the scenes of, okay, so why is, eating gluten potentially damaging or holding somebody back from their recovery? You probably heard of that before, but this course breaks down the research. I kind of weigh in from my kind of clinical experience. It's very educational in nature. As you mentioned, Cam, it's not meant to be replacing anybody. You can continue to work with your naturopathic doctor if you have somebody like that on part of your team, which I highly recommend. Definitely work with everybody that's doing manual therapy for you. But it now gives you kind of almost like a support network to be able to now deliver that to you in a more tangible way. Like, for example, what do I eat for breakfast? And so I go through, specific meals. What are things that you should be including? What types of fats are good fats? And so a lot more detail, actually, even than sometimes I share with my patients, because I simply don't have time. And it's something I'm going to be asking my patients, hey, if you want more information, go check this out, because we've put a lot of that, a lot of work into making this, really streamlined.
Yeah, I mean, I was going through all of your content to upload it and everything like that, and the amount of stuff that you included just with handouts and like, vagus nerve stimulation and all this type of really cool stuff. I know just on my end, it's definitely way more than I'm able to provide in terms of education to my patients on a regular basis
Mhm.
because, like you said, you just don't have time, right? This is all the stuff of just getting out there everything that you've ever wanted your patients to know. I really think this is going to be pretty powerful in terms of being able to help people, all over the place to get better. So it's just crazy the amount of like practical resources that that you've included in your stuff and
You,
uh,
it's. I think I totally agree with you. It's interesting to think about. A lot of people will say, like, why would you create a course like this? Because that's basically what you do, and that's actually not what I do with my patients. It's part of what I do. As as a clinician, everybody needs to have a personalized plan. But if everyone came to me and said, "Listen, already, doc, I've cleaned up my diet and I'm eating a certain way that's going to limit inflammation that's happening in the brain. I've already have an understanding of how my gut health is related to my brain, which I detail in extensively in the course, but in a way that there's a lot of research out there as well, and I've distilled it down. So it's a lot of that is simplifying a lot of complex topics and misinformation. Like you're bang on in your introduction. It's that there's a ton of misinformation out there about what to eat, what not to eat. Should I do keto? Should I not do keto? Is coconut oil a good food? Is it not a good food? I've now had a chance to put all of that, scour the research, put all of that into kind of an easy to understand way, and people can go to that and almost create a foundation. So when they let's say they do come see me, which would be an ideal situation, or they go continue their physiotherapy or their other care they're doing, they are now taking care of the foundational piece of inflammation and sleep and hormones. At least they have an idea of how important they are and who they might now need to go see to kind of take care of that. So it really is, I think, empowering to people that are taking this course and not replacing good quality practitioners, but kind of getting everybody on a baseline that say, hey, this is the riffraff, this is the stuff that's really not helpful. This is what the research says. Let's hopefully put it together and have a good understanding of, yes, the way I sleep has a huge role to play in my concussion recovery. And I've kind of broken it down very simply for people.
Hmm. And that's the stuff that I find with my patients is so hard. Like I don't have time to spend, 2 hours teaching them about proper sleep. But it's so important to their recovery. So like you said, these are the foundational elements that if you don't take care of this, the rest of it's going to be hard. And actually the way I structured the course, like right from the get-go, I have some educational stuff, some pathophysiology stuff, but the first actual implementation strategies are first the mindset, and then right into diet, sleep,
Yeah.
and all of your stuff. So these are the foundational elements, just like you said. What
Yeah.
what elements are you most excited about, just in terms of your content that you included in this? Like, what are kind of some of the biggest nuggets that you think are going to be helpful?
Um, yeah, I think it's hard for me to tease out because I'm going to say there's three major areas, and so I know that one of the beauty parts about this course is that it's almost like there's a synergy with all the different layers. I am not an expert in everything, but I know you have a really good, strong knowledge of obviously the manual therapy side, the exercise recovery side, rehabilitation, and the pathophysiology. So I don't need to go in and explain all that stuff. But what I did do is that I kind of said, okay, how does the pathophysiology of a concussion relate to diet? How does it relate to sleep? And now it allowed me to be just really zoned in on, okay, so let's talk about how to sleep better. And so that's one area that I'm really excited about, is being able to share with people a lot of things that are totally free, but they're just having to kind of implement these things in their life in a way because they've heard this from a person or they read an Instagram post, but having kind of outlined 6 key principles of sleep hygiene. How can you sleep better without taking a drug or without even taking a supplement to start with? And so these are things that are free. And so when I realized that they're free, to me this was just such a great opportunity to now spread the message that we've been sharing with all of our patients to people all over the world.
Hmm.
And because this information's out there, but it's in 10 different spots, and it might be accompanied with 2 bad recommendations, or in a way that is really not easy to understand and really easy to consume. So I think that's what I'm most excited about, is being able to distill information from so many different massive topics, like sleep, and the way that the gut is relating to the brain, and what particular characteristics and properties of food have in terms of their relation to inflammation. And I spent a whole module just talking about not even just brain injuries, but just breaking down, does food have a role to play in the way that our brain feels? Does it have a role to play in propagating inflammation, let's say? So that is something that is really exciting for me, to be able to just have the ability to take the time to break all those things down. And then ultimately that culminates in a lot of, as you said, a lot of practical handouts and practical kind of resources where people can actually take it away and be like, all right, so here are things that I can do to stimulate the connection between my gut and my brain. And the great news is that you can do them right in your home. You don't have to buy anything for it.
Mm. One thing that's been just blowing my mind of just little things I've been doing for myself. Now, I don't have a concussion, but I'm obviously interested in health and other things. And I mean, changing my diet a couple of years ago, being an asthmatic my entire life, and changing my diet a few years ago, completely eliminated my need to use inhalers. Now, since summer's kicking back up and I haven't been as diligent, I'm noticing that I actually need my inhalers again. So, and it's just a crazy thing. I remember when you took control of my diet and just, kind of put me on the right path, within days of changing it, my mind felt clear. I was sleeping better right away. And I was just like,
Hmm.
holy shit, how many of my concussion patients are just going through this exact thing, right? So breaking all that down, I don't think people realize that what you're putting into your body is having a profound effect on your inflammation, on your fatigue, on your fogginess, on your concentration difficulties, and all of these things that people often struggle with following concussion is just so tied into, change your diet, change your whole situation potentially, right? And actually, we did a talk last week with Nazeeg, and she was one of my patients a couple years ago, and she came in after 6 years, and we changed her diet, and within the first week she had dropped her symptoms by more than 50%,
Exactly. Yeah.
just changing her diet. And another thing that's been really interesting to me lately has been sleep. So I've been looking more into sleep, and I got an Aura ring over Christmas. I don't know if you use the Aura ring. Do you have an Aura ring? Do you know what it
No,
is?
I don't. I've heard of it before. It's, the technology is a beautiful thing now,
Yeah.
but I'm still old school myself.
I probably should be, because sometimes I just read too much into it and I'm like, oh, I had a bad sleep last night. Um, but I find that it's really interesting just implementing certain like little changes, right? Like not having high heavy carb meals before bed, um,
Hmm.
not having alcohol before bed, completely changes your sleep. Like I wasn't getting deep sleep, and all of a sudden made these couple changes, getting sunlight during the day, right? People don't realize it, but getting that first dose of sunlight, like blue light is good for you, right? A lot of people with concussion are walking around wearing blue light filtering sunglasses all day
That's right.
long, and that's actually not effective. You should wear blue light blockers at night, like after 8 p.m. But when the sun is up, you should be actually getting all of that blue light stimulation, because that's actually what's helping your circadian rhythm. And if you block that, your circadian rhythm gets all screwed up. Um,
That's right.
yeah. So of course Zoom's going to end our meeting here while we're live on online, but I'll just open up another one with Melinda. So we might have to do that. Might have to make this a two-parter.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No
so
worries.
so um, yeah, I mean, I think just that whole area is just so important, and awesome to
You,
have you on it.
I appreciate it. It's been an honor working together as we have with collaboration with patients. So this is just a real natural extension of that, and I'm really excited, honestly, in getting feedback. This is something that is a community as well. It's not just going to be a static educational course. So people are going to get some great information. We're going to talk about specifics like alcohol and its effect on sleep. People have heard that, but we're going to actually break some of that stuff down. So some of those details that we just simply don't ever have a chance, even with my patients. Yeah, I'll say don't drink alcohol, but then they don't really know why. And then when you
Mm,
don't know why, you actually don't adhere to it as well.
mhm,
So that part of that recovery mindset is education, and education is power. I keep telling that to my patients. Once you know why, for example, in your particular case, once you realize that, hey, I'm eating foods that create a inflammatory response in my airways, now I know how there's this connection. Well, it's a no-brainer. I'm just going to avoid it. It's almost like the more you know, the more that you actually, the more that you can't hide from the truth. You actually have to adhere to it. So that was the thing with me, is that I used to kind of like, oh, I ate gluten once in a while, and I don't have a brain injury. But once I started reading all the research on it, I was like, I have no choice but to now start limiting my gluten my
mhm.
gluten intake. And it also has helped me. And I realized that only until I removed it, that things that I didn't even realize that were happening. So I'm just really excited to kind of be able to share this really, I think game changing and life changing information with people out there.
Yeah, I think I really, and I've been saying this too. I think I completely agree with you in terms of like knowledge is power. Um, Knowing, like, if I've always tried to do with my patients, if they understand why I'm telling them to do something, they're going to be way more likely to do it. So I honestly think that just doing this is going to probably be able to completely eliminate symptoms in probably 75 to 80% of people if they actually implement the strategies that are included. There's going to be some things that we obviously can't do through a course, like we can't provide manual therapy. There's some
Of
rehab
course, yeah.
that you're going to need to do. You might have to go for additional testing. You may need hormone replacements or some other things. Um, But I honestly think that that's actually a small fraction of what people need. People just need to start exercising better, start eating better, start sleeping better, and start challenging their nervous system a little bit by bit, but know what to do and why they're doing it. And I think it's just going to make such a tremendous impact on people. So, yeah, I think that this is.
Oh,
Oh,
what
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you mentioned stress is that's one thing I totally forgot is I really go into stress and the hormone piece
Mm.
too. And that is one of these huge limiting factors. I have to say with every single one of my patients, they're all in this fight and flight mode. They're in a state of their nervous system and their hormonal system. We always think of hormones like reproduction and sex and that kind of stuff. It's actually way more related to everything you do in your life, from an energy perspective to hair growth to bring a massive component to it. And just when you were talking there, that I just kind of like, triggered me being like, yeah, that's a huge component that I don't have a chance to chat with my patients about. And
Mhm.
so I'm doing this partly selfishly. I want all my patients to take this course
Yeah, yeah, me too.
because now they're actually going to be able to have me talking in their ear for the next, however long it takes for them to go. And then getting all the bonus stuff that Melinda and you were going to talk about. Like, that's just phenomenal information.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be good from a patient care standpoint, but also for people who can't get access to that kind of care, who don't have a circle of care like us. I basically describe it as like I've brought my circle, into this so that people can kind of, I always get requests from people like even overseas in Europe and all over the place to come and see me. But I'm always like, well, if you're coming to see me, you got to see all these other people too. So we have to start coordinating appointments, and we've had to do that in the past for people flying in.
Yeah.
But now it's like we've just kind of put it all together. And I almost want to say that this is probably the first step in that. So next time I get requests from overseas, I can say, first do this. And if you're still having issues after that, then we can talk about that. Because
Right.
you essentially got to come spend, 12 weeks here in Toronto, um, which a lot of it's just stuff that you could be doing on your own, right? As long as you have the knowledge to do it.
For sure.
All right. Well, I appreciate you joining me today live. I'm going to now switch it over to chat with Melinda. You can hang out if you want, or you can go. But always a pleasure to see you, and I'm really excited about continuing on this journey.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. I'm excited to kind of see this grow. And if anybody that takes the course, please give us feedback. It's an evolution as we go. It's something that we're super passionate about. It's something that we're really excited to put together. But we know that as the research evolves, as our patient feedback evolves, we learn all the time. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited to get feedback on the course itself. And if there's anything that you feel like has been missed, let us know, and we're going to be able to tackle it in the community, especially as part of the Concussion Fix.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to make, is that this will evolve, right? And that's how CCMI is too. Every time something new comes out, we're always updating it to make sure that people are getting the most updated information. So, yeah, I think the feedback is going to be really good. I think that even the discount we're running today is we're basically calling it a founding members discount, because these people are going to have the initial people coming in are going to have a role to play in shaping what this ultimately becomes in terms of community aspect and the content that's there. So it's just going to get better and better.
For sure.
All right.
All right, I'm going to let you roll.
Sweet. Thanks, man. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
We're back.
Thanks for the feedback.
Yeah.
In the comments there.
Yeah. Okay. Melinda Kreinen Hill is a registered psychotherapist, trained mindfulness facilitator, and founder of Still Space, a mindfulness consulting company that offers mindfulness and compassion-based initiatives to enhance wellness. Melinda has a dynamic and comprehensive background in both psychotherapy and mindfulness. She has trained in a range of mindfulness-based interventions, such as mindfulness-based cognitive therapy and mindful self-compassion. And her academic background includes a Master's of Education in Counseling Psychology from the University of Toronto and a Master of Public Health in Health Promotion from the University of Alberta. Melinda is particularly qualified in the area of chronic pain as a trained facilitator of the mindfulness-based chronic pain management program through NeuroNova Center for Mindful Solutions. In her psychotherapy practice, Melinda offers individual therapy services to adults with a special focus on rehabilitation and recovery from injury or illness. Melinda has a particular expertise in working with chronic health concerns, including chronic pain, complex health conditions, post-concussion syndrome, and associated mental health concerns such as health anxiety, depression, and adjustment difficulties. She further has experience with working with obsessive compulsive disorder, anxiety, panic, stress, life transitions, and relationship issues. Personally, she's been practicing mindfulness meditation for over 8 years. And actually, I think you introduced me to mindfulness-based meditation back in the day.
That's great. I didn't know that.
Yes, you had a role to play in that.
Wonderful.
I think that was around the time that you and I were discussing putting together an app
We were.
for meditation to put into the CCMI app.
That's right.
Yeah. So Melinda and I go way back, and we've worked on several patients together. And just to follow up kind of some of the stuff I say with Dr. Herkel is that, adding her is definitely a huge component of concussion recovery. The mindfulness, the mindset that people need to have, because, recovery is difficult. It's hard to get there. There's going to be ups and downs along the way. And, people need to have the right mindset to be able to persevere beyond that and be able to tap into some skills and tools that they need to kind of facilitate and hone and practice to have at their disposal. It's funny, when I go through periods of just meditation on my own, what I find is that when I need it, it's there. But if I go through periods of time where I'm not tapping into it, I'm not practicing it every day, and then, one night I can't sleep and I try to, quiet my mind by doing some of these activities, it's like I can't tap into it because I'm out of practice. So I think it's something that's just so important for people to work on and hone and all this stuff. And you give some really great tips and strategies within this course. And I think it's, I'm just so glad that you agreed to join us on this. But what kind of content can people expect from you in the Concussion Fix course?
Absolutely. Well, same goes. I thank you so much for including me in this project. It's, I think, as both you and Paul were saying, such an important, such important concepts and information that really needs to be more accessible for everyone. So I'm grateful that we've spent the time putting this together. It seemed like a really good quarantine task for all of us. I think it's going to be tremendously beneficial. And so I kind of think of the content that I've put together for everyone as being two parts. The first part is sort of more of a background and understanding of the mind-body connection and the importance of this and what this means for mental and emotional well-being, but also physical health and recovery, particularly in the case of injury such as concussion. So the first part of what I'm offering is really understanding the interrelationship between our thoughts, our emotions, our behaviors, starting to understand how we can actually become familiar with the differences between these three components of our experience. And that can actually help us to make sense of what's going on when maybe there's a mental and emotional struggle. But also, even if you aren't someone who's struggling, for instance, with anxiety or depression associated with your concussion, there's some really important information there around just making sense of your experiences. There may be some ways that you are avoiding certain activities just simply because of the symptom flares you might experience as a result of engaging in some of your rehabilitation exercises. So regardless of whether you experience a mental health challenge like anxiety, I really think that there's so much information available to help people make sense of their experiences. And then, blending in with the two course offering or the two different sections that yourself and Paul, I think people are getting a really good overall picture of how all of this interrelates. And I almost want to say that this interconnection between thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that I talk a lot about can probably go through that whole course if we embed that perspective and how much there is an overlap there.
Well, that's that's exactly why I put your stuff basically right away, because it's just such a foundational element that, exactly how you say, is that your thoughts can actually influence your outcomes in that way. Because one of the biggest problems and challenges I see with patients when they first come to see me is that they're very fear avoidant. They're afraid of the symptom flares. They don't understand. They've been told that anything that provokes their symptoms is detrimental, and they should be avoiding it at all costs. And that's not exactly true. But trying to get them even just to get out of that mindset is a real big challenge. And so I think exactly what you're saying, just in terms of how does that frame your experience, is just so vital. And that's why yours is just boom right up front.
Yeah, and I think it makes so much sense when people are nervous or fearful to try these, recommended exercises and whatever it is that they need to go through, whether it's vestibular or, physical therapy and so on. And it makes sense. Of course, you don't want to do that. It makes you feel bad, or it might provoke some flare in your symptoms. And I think one of the modules I talk a lot about, working with that. How can you work with these, fears, worries, anxieties, whatever might be coming up around moving forward with what's been recommended to you, because it makes sense. Fear and anxiety show up because it's trying to protect you, right? It's trying to say, hey, something's not right here. I don't feel in balance. And the irony or paradox, or whatever the right word for that might be, of concussion is that you almost have to evoke some of these symptoms to help increase your symptom threshold. So it's sort of this really strange but important piece to really wrap your head around. And I think that can be missed sometimes if you're only receiving physical therapy, or if you're only receiving vestibular rehabilitation, that the piece around what is going to help with your continuity of care or your receptivity to care is that you also need to understand what might be holding you back, or what types of thoughts, emotions, or behaviors may really be interfering with your ability to move forward with what's been recommended to you. So, as you said, I think it's such an integral part.
Yeah, it's just huge. So,
before we go on, sorry, Cam, I wanted to mention the second part of the content that I didn't get to yet. And so the first is really laying the foundation for that, the thoughts, emotions, behaviors, how there's this how the mind-body connection plays such an important role. And then secondly, we'll move into practices. So actually learning what to do with this information that you've gained in terms of the mind-body connection, and how you can use practices like mindfulness and meditation to help promote your recovery, and as a way to sort of, to the point that you and Paul made earlier, regulate this nervous system that's constantly in a state of hyperarousal, or that fight or flight response, and how that can be connected as well.
Something I just want to go back to just quickly before we move on is exactly what you were saying about just this weird paradox when it comes to concussion, because your fears and anxieties are there initially to protect you, right? Like, there's something dangerous going on, so your fight or flight happens and you want to run away from it. And generally when there's issues going on with your nervous system, you're going to have those types of fight or flight moments, but they're going to happen at things that are essentially innocuous, but you don't realize that. And in order to reduce that over time, you actually have to push into that a little bit. To say you want to face your fears in a way, but you kind of have to do that. And so things are going to be challenging, that you are going to kind of feel like crap from time to time. But I think that the stuff that you're putting into this, and all the resources and everything else that go with it, I think is going to really help people to kind of push through that a little bit and kind of make sense of all of it. So when you were making this, your content, what areas are you kind of most excited in sharing, on your section? What things are you really, really excited to share with the patients that do it?
Yeah, well, maybe the first one is just building off what you said there around empowering people to learn how to cultivate and develop resilience to these stresses. And what you're saying regarding needing to lean into some of these uncomfortable symptoms requires some level of tolerance to stress and building resilience to uncomfortable things. And so I think bringing this element in is something I'm really excited to kind of share. It also really normalizes how people are feeling. I mean, sometimes if you're going through rehabilitation, it might feel like that piece is missed, or maybe isn't really acknowledged, that wait a second, there's all sorts of things going on in your brain that are trying to protect you and keep you safe. Yet, how do you work through those so that you can see gains in your recovery? So this piece around resilience, I think, is very exciting for me to share with everyone, and I find it very empowering. Paul said that as well. That just putting this information together, I think for me, it just feels like I'm giving our course participants tools that they can empower themselves to make a difference in their recovery. That as much as it's not a replacement for the health professionals you already have, but that it's going to supplement by giving you all this background knowledge and skills and techniques and information that's going to help you be able to move forward, feeling more confident and with this resilience. So I think that is number one in terms of what I'm most excited about. And then, having the resources that we're going to offer in the community support to really help people, if they might even use the modules we present as information to say, hey, this is where I'm struggling, or hey, this is where I'm stuck. Great. Well, now they've learned something really important about how to move forward. So learning about the things that you might be stuck in, I see it as actually an opportunity for growth. How can we start to use that to move forward and in their recovery? So I think those two pieces are really essential and important for me.
And it's interesting, like you said something earlier about just the overall resilience of going through these difficult situations and being able to get through it. I actually closed the course, and you don't even know this yet because we haven't gone through it together. But the way that I close the course is basically if you were able to get through this, you can get through anything, right? Because this is such a challenge for so many people, and it affects so many areas of your physical, mental, social health, and even financial health, which affects a whole bunch of things too. The stresses that everything puts on you, and so there's a lot of stuff to be learned from this, even just for life. Putting these things into place and getting through it, right? Everything or anything worth doing is, going to be difficult. And so if you can get through this, there's nothing that can stand in your way after this, which I think is super, super important.
And that information is going to stay, that you can always go back and take a look and really use it. Perhaps one thing isn't relevant today, but it may be a month down the road or 6 months down the road.
And that's why we set it up the way we did. I mean, we set it up as kind of a membership platform so people can actually keep access to it. It's not meant to just be, one and done, but we know that there's going to be things that come up, down the road that you're going to need to review and refresh. But as long as you know where to find those resources, it's always right at your, completely right at your fingertips. So, I think that's awesome. So in your mind, these are obviously the conversations and education that you have with your patients and the tips and stuff that you provide to them. So who do you think would benefit, most from this type of course? We've kind of geared it towards more of the chronic patients. Was there anyone in particular that you think your content especially would be appealing to, just in terms of maybe the symptoms they might have or, challenges they might be facing? Can you think of anything?
Well, as you said, I think it's really applicable for anyone who's experienced concussion, whether they're 6 months in or 2 years in or more. Absolutely, if it's become more chronic, then this mindset piece may be really important to you. If your symptoms have become more chronic, and the thought around, how do I work with that? How do you work with symptoms that have stuck around longer than you expected? How do you work with expectations and keep that resilience to be able to move forward? So I think whether or not it is someone who is new into their recovery journey or, down the road, it's still really, really relevant either way. And perhaps even I was thinking as we were sort of gearing it more to people who have been suffering with certain symptoms for longer than 6 months, which is sort of that definition of chronic, that even people who are still early on, how amazing would it be to get this foundational knowledge before it even reaches that transition to chronic? That, if I could count, I can't even count how many times with clients of mine that I just said, gosh, I wish I had seen you a year ago. I wish I had seen you 2 years ago. Not that we can't do great work and really recover wherever you are in your journey, but that sometimes not having this foundational knowledge and this sort of really comprehensive look at what's happened for you can be a barrier, or at least, push things in terms of prolonging recovery. So I think it really speaks to individuals no matter where they are on their recovery journey.
I'm right on the same page. I think that one of the things that I always think of is just like, oh, if I had only seen you, like a couple of weeks after your injury, it's like you wouldn't even be in this situation right now, because we would have just done the right things right away, right? And I always say that too, is like the longer it's been, the harder it's going to be, because this type of stuff starts to get ingrained in you, and the more people are generally told to pull back from things and not to push into them, and that's just been the cornerstone for concussion recovery forever. And people have a hard time wrapping their mind around it, especially when their healthcare professionals have been telling them continuously to avoid anything that causes symptoms. And so they get this idea that gets ingrained in their mind, and as they pull back, everything just gets more deteriorated and weaker and weaker and weaker. So the longer it's been that you've been in this state, the harder it is to recover, but you still can. And I think that's what people don't realize, is that you still can. It takes more work, it's harder, but it's definitely worth doing. And so I think that's something that, that's why I put all of your information, like I said, like right up front. This is something that needs to be ingrained into their mindset before they can even hope to recover, because as they go through, things are going to get difficult, but this is here to be a support tool and something they can refer back to. And
and with the mental and emotional well-being piece, it looks different for everyone. And regardless of sorry, there's a lot of traffic coming outside my window, you probably hear it, but regardless of where you're coming from to the course, it's going to look different. And so what I hope that I've done is put together enough information that will speak to people along their various stages of this. And whether you're someone who's maybe had lifelong anxiety or depression before your concussion, your needs are going to be really different than someone who's maybe developed health anxiety since your concussion. So, there's so many different audiences. And I think that's what's so unique about putting this information together for this course, is trying to speak to these different audiences. And like Paul said as well, we welcome your feedback to this. Help us know how we can provide you with information in the way that's going to be best for you. So you might hear something that I don't expand on, and please let us know, so that that's something I can keep in mind, and we can include in future versions of this course.
Yeah, I think that's something to just keep in mind, that this is going to be a living, breathing thing. And we update as new information comes out, as feedback comes in. If people want more of a certain thing, we help to do it, and that's why we're offering the founders discount and today, to get people in there to have their say, to let them be the first to kind of take a run at it. So I'm pretty excited for that too. Anyway, Melinda, I won't take up any more of your day, but it was nice chatting with you, and so grateful that you've joined us on this. And look forward to kind of getting into groups and seeing your comments and the questions that roll in. So for everyone else who's listening, the course is the Concussion Fix, and it is with myself, Dr. Cameron Marshall, concussion doc, Dr. Paul Herkel, and Melinda Crinan-Hill. It is, I think, 12 modules long, 25 lessons. I don't even know how many hours of content and resources and documents to download, but you can find it if you go to concussiondoc.io. For those listening on the podcast or watching on YouTube, we put a link in the show notes below, and you can click on that and go to that and sign up for it. For those that are on Instagram and watching this live, if you go to my post today, concussion_doc, or if you go to the Complete Concussions post today and comment how long you've been dealing with post-concussion syndrome, we will send you a link with a coupon so that you can get some money off today. The coupon does expire Thursday at midnight, so by the time this podcast comes out next week, unfortunately that sale will be over, but this just benefits everyone who follows us on social media and watches us live. So there you go. Melinda, Paul, who's now gone, but I want to thank both of you guys.
Thanks, Cam.
For coming on today and sharing everything. And I think this course is going to help so many people. So I'm super, super pumped about it.
Yeah, I look forward to having more conversations like this.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye.
See everybody later. Bye-bye.
Whoa, wait. Just one more thing before you go. This episode is brought to you by the Complete Concussion Management Clinical Network. Are you suffering from concussion symptoms that just aren't getting better? Maybe you're in the wrong place. Maybe you're seeing the wrong healthcare professional. Visit completeconcussion.com/find-a-clinic to find all the local professionally trained concussion rehab individuals in your area. Each of our partnered clinics have gone through extensive training on concussion assessment, management, diagnosis, treatment, and rehabilitation. They're going to work with you to try and find the root cause of your symptoms and then develop a treatment plan and approach to help get rid of them. If you don't know what's driving the symptoms, you can't ever help or hope to fix them. CompleteConcussions.com/find-a-clinic. They have a 98% patient satisfaction rating and have a higher net promoter score than Amazon, Apple, and Netflix. CompleteConcussions.com/find-a-clinic. You will not regret it.